Okay. So welcome everyone to the Alberta Lake Management Society 2024 ICBM program for the summer training. I appreciate everyone taking time out of their day to join in. We're very excited to have 4 new communities joining us this year for the water quality monitoring, and I hope that this session will be informative for all of you. Can everyone hear me okay and see the screen okay? Good.
Yeah, everything looks good.
Okay, perfect. So for all of our existing communities, I hope this continues to be a useful tool for monitoring. Please feel free to ask questions throughout the presentation. You can either unmute or write them in the chat. I do have my colleagues monitoring that, and they'll let me know if anyone has a question. And there also will be time for questions at the end. And if for any reason we are disconnected, just please use the same link to try and get back in. Are there any questions before we begin? I'd also like to do a land acknowledgement as we come together to honor the lands that we are going to be working on this summer, recognizing them as Treaty 6 and Treaty 8 territory, the traditional and ancestral lands cared for by the Cree, the Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux First Nations of both past and present. This land is also home to the Métis people and the many Métis settlements across northern Alberta. In our shared efforts to protect and respect our waters, we express our deep gratitude for the traditional knowledge keepers and the elders who guide us today, as well as those who have come before us. We commit to working with respect on these waters and our lands to foster a spirit of unity and reconciliation with all those who share these territories. And I'd like to give a personal thank you to all the communities that have welcomed myself and ALM staff to their homes, offices, and lands. When we come out to do field work together, a lot of planning goes into these trips, and we greatly appreciate the effort and the time it takes to plan. So just to look at the agenda today, so we'll just talk about ALM's role in ICBM, a look at the summer program design, a look at our field sheets, looking at calibration procedures, program protocols, so what to do before you head out to the lake, once you're on the lake, and what to do after you get off, some shipping logistics, and some next steps. Okay, so for those who don't know us, we are ALMS. We are a nonprofit organization that has been around since 1991. We are located in Edmonton, Alberta, with a mission of building awareness and understanding of lakes by engaging individuals and communities in monitoring, management, and education. We receive funding from various stakeholders to conduct extensive lake and recreational beach monitoring within Alberta, to build both baseline and long-term databases for many of these lakes. We work closely with many volunteers and communities on many different lakes alongside watershed planning advisory committees, lake stewardship groups, industries, universities, and government. Our small team consists of 4 permanent staff and currently 4 seasonal staff that we have welcomed in May and will support various projects this summer. So our contract with OSAM is managed by Keegan Hicks, whom I'm sure many of you know or have met. And we have also been approved to deliver the water quality program for 2024 to 2025. So our role in all this is to provide water quality sampling equipment and training, so such as the probes and bottle sets. And the training is conducted online, like this webinar, for example, and then in person, where we conduct field visits to each community each season. We process all the collected samples and ensure that they are sent to the appropriate analytical labs. We also manage the data and have been working on submitting individual community reports for the 2022-2023 monitoring work. And again, these community visits are very important to us. It gives a great opportunity for us to come meet the communities and all the staff that does this work, and we can provide additional field support as well. So just to look at the sampling design. So we provide the YSI Pro Solos. These are the water quality probes that measure both temperature, dissolved oxygen, and connectivity, and that's just shown in the picture to the left. We also provide sampling field manual, field sheets, all the bottle sets, calibration solutions for dissolved oxygen and connectivity, a chlorophyll A filtering kit, and for the summer program, we provide a Secchi disc, and this measures the water clarity. And with the sampling design, communities choose the lake or lakes and the site on these lakes. So that could either be the deepest point on the lake, a traditional fishing site, or a site of concern. That's up to the community to decide. And ideally, we aim to sample once a month, so starting in June and ending in September. We also collect additional contaminant bottles as these lakes are located in the oil sand region. So we do collect the polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons or compounds. We collect mercury and metals, and this is done once per season per lake. And then in the summer, we also do a quality control with each community, and this is just done once per year. And this is just to analyze lab precision and also our own collection precision. And then for the reporting, as I said, currently I am submitting reports to the communities that did the 2022-2023 work. So they receive a individualized data report as well as the Excel files that contain all the lab results. And right now, or originally when the contract was made, that it stated that all Western science data would be uploaded to the KISTERS platform, which is where other OSIM data is usually stored. However, ICBM AC has been working on developing data sharing agreements that will give communities options for how or if they wish to share this data publicly. So we're just waiting on the final approval from the Oversight Committee. And then I believe all the communities will be contacted regarding that and can choose their level of data sharing. Okay, so here's just like a list of the sampling equipment that is supplied. This is provided in the field manual. So once you do receive your equipment, I encourage you to just look through everything. Please let me know right away if anything is missing, and then we can make sure that gets shipped out to you. So again, all that equipment, the probe, the Secchi disc, field sheets, ice packs for shipping, tape and weights to measure to bottom depth, nitrile gloves, safety goggles, and then we have a variety of bottles that we'll go through in a bit. And then our chlorophyll A filter supplies, which we will go through those steps near the end of this session. Okay, so this is just some pictures I took from the field manual that comes with the kit. So this just describes the various parameters that we collect for the lake monitoring and just kind of a blurb of like why we want to collect these. So we have things like microcystins. This is a group of toxins that's produced by cyanobacteria or the blue-green algae. So this can be very harmful to human health. So we want to look for that in the lakes. We look at things like a G2 preserved bottle, and this measures total phosphorus and nitrogens. An influx in these parameters can lead to an increase in blue-green algae blooms, along with chlorophyll A. So looking at the amount of algae and cyanobacteria, again, just to help monitor those alga blooms. And then we also do the contaminants. So we do look at the metals. Specifically, we do test for the arsenic and lead, which is very toxic to human and wildlife. Mercury levels and the packs again, which are measure the pollutants from fossil fuels that can also harm aquatic life. So this is all provided in the manual, and it's quite a list of parameters that are tested, and then these will all be received on the data reports for the results.
Hi, Kristen. Amanda had a question in the chat about, is there online versions for the field manuals and equipment lists?
Yeah, good question. So yes, this field manual is also provided on our ALMS website on the ICBM page. I believe I've attached the updated one. I will double check that, but you can go to our website and print as many copies as you need from that. And I also can send you a copy as well if you want. And this will include the equipment list and everything on there as well. Okay, so just gonna take a look at what our field sheets look like. So this is the front side. Okay, so at the top here, you have your sampling information. So your lake name, your date, your time, location name. This is just more of a reference point on the lake that we can use to match the GPS points that you give. Just for example, if you were at Pigeon Lake, maybe you were close to the provincial park, or if you're at Wabamun Lake, you're close to Seba Beach. So you could just write something like that. If the community, if you maybe name this area something, then we can call it that for sure. Just if there's any campground, park, bridge, or something as a reference point, and then we'll match it to the GPS points, just so we have an idea of where on the lake you are. Ideally, you want to sample at the same spot throughout the summer, but it does depend on what you want to receive from the data as well. If this is an area of concern, it would be recommended to go back to that spot so we can start developing a good baseline trend. Or if you just kind of want to see what the lake looks like as a whole, then you could go to different spots as well. The kit number, so that'll just be on a sticker on top of your kit, and that just helps us keep track of who has what probe and in case anything goes wrong with the probe. And then the hours spent sampling, so this just includes your calibration time, transportation to the lake, sampling, and your filtering time. Okay, then below you have a bunch of environmental observations. So things like air temperature, wind speed, wind direction, these can all be pulled from a weather app on your phone. Sometimes on some of the remote lakes, you might not have the best service, so you can check beforehand, or when you get back to the office, you can check and just get an approximation of what these values might be. We have a 24-hour rainfall. This can be found on different websites, which I can send out with the follow-up email for this. This just helps us to understand how rain might affect the water clarity, especially if a storm just passed through. And then we have evidence of the cyanobacteria bloom. So this is the blue-green algae. And this can look very different depending. So on the side here, I just showed a few different examples. So sometimes you might have just like little particles in the water. Sometimes it can look more like paint streaks, and sometimes it can be full-on scums. So just record that on the field sheet, and if it looks anything different or is different colors, feel free to record that as well. That's good to note how the lake is doing, especially progressing from June to September. We often see an increase in blooms as the season passes. And then we have our Secchi depth, which I will go into more detail how to measure later on. And then we have our GPS coordinates, and it's very important that you record these because we want to know where on the lake you were sampling, so we can tie all the results into that area, and of course if there's any blooms as well. And then there's also a section to include fish. So this is not meant to be a detailed fish assessment, but more just to complement the water quality data collected that day. Some members like to go out and fish while they're out sampling. If you catch something and you do wish to record it, here is a spot for it. For some lakes, it's been a question of whether the lake can even support fish populations. So it's just good to know if there are fish, then we can record that and know that they're there. And then just at the bottom here is our probe calibration values, which we will go through shortly. But this is just where you can record your barometer value for dissolved oxygen and the calibration solution value for conductivity. Okay, and then this is what the backside will look like. So in your kit, there will be a tape and weight, which you can use to find your bottom depth. So that's where you can record it. An important note is that all of our probe cables will be pre-marked in meters. I know a lot of us like to use feet, including myself, but for our program and database, we work in meters. So when measuring your bottom depth, just please measure in meters, which is available on the tape and weight already. This makes it really easy once you start doing your profile measurements to know once you're at the bottom and where to stop measuring, just so your probe doesn't go into the sediment. So once we have the bottom depth marked, yeah, so I guess as an example, we've had the bottom depth marked in feet, but then when they measure the profile, it just exceeds that depth, just thinking that it's in feet, and then the results just don't make sense. So there is also a marking guide in the manual as well to indicate what depth the colored tape will indicate. And then this is the large table to record all of your probe measurements for temperature, dissolved oxygen, and connectivity. So you'll begin at the 0.1 meters or the blue tape, and you'll record all these values down just to a meter above bottom. So if you had a bottom depth of 10 meters, then you would record down to 9. And again, that just guarantees that our probe's not going into the sediment and then skewing your data. Okay, and then there's a spot here for your chlorophyll A filter volumes. We'll go through all these steps, but this is where you can record volume and your color of filters. And then there's just a space for additional comments and observations. You know, if there was difficulty accessing the lake, if there was any issues with the equipment, just any general observations. Some members like to record if they've seen wildlife that day, if they've seen other people on the lake, noticed anything strange. This is a good spot to put that. And then we also have a spot just for the technician or community member names that go out. And then we just have a checklist just to run through before you're done sampling. Okay, so before you head out, you're going to freeze some ice packs just before the sampling trip and the night before. So these will be used for shipping samples back afterwards. You're going to want to bring a phone or GPS device with you. Again, some of these lakes are remote and service is low, so that's just a safety concern. And also this can be used to find your GPS coordinates and record weather data. You want to make sure your probe battery is charged, so there is a plug-in charger included in the kits. These probes are very good. It takes a long time to drain the battery, but just always double check that it's going to be enough for the entire trip. And then you're going to bring a small cooler with the bottle set, which will be sent to you along with a cold ice pack. We just want to make sure our samples aren't going to get warm throughout. And it's important with summer sampling to check the wind speeds, because if it's too windy, not only again is it a safety concern, but the probe will tend to drift and you're just not going to get accurate readings all the way down to the bottom. Okay, so just a quick note about GPS coordinates. Again, please record them on the front side of your field sheet. These can be collected with a Garmin or any device, like your phone or tablet. I just use a free app on my phone. Pretty easy. The most important thing is to record these values as you see them on the screen and to record as many digits that are shown. And there are different types of formats, and neither one is wrong. It just has to be recorded correctly, and then we can always convert them later on. Okay, so we're gonna go through the probe calibration steps for dissolved oxygen and connectivity. So this can be done at home if you don't live far from the lake, but we do highly recommend to just do it at the lake. You can do it out of the tailgate of your vehicle or at a picnic table. And yeah, we'll just run through the steps right now. Okay, so for dissolved oxygen, so there's 3 parts to the probe as seen in the picture. So there's the gray sleeve, there's the metal guard, and then there is the probe itself. In that gray sleeve, there should be a little yellow sponge, and it should always be a little wet. It doesn't have to be saturated, but just a little wet. And this just keeps the probe from getting damaged and just calibrated well. So you're going to remove the gray sleeve and the metal guard. You're going to gently dry the surface tip with a Kim wipe tissue that will be provided in the kit. If you run out of these, just a clean tissue is fine. Again, make sure the sponge is a little wet. There will be some water provided. You can just pour a little bit in there. And then you're going to put the metal guard and the gray sleeve back on and let it sit for 5 minutes. Also, while everything's disassembled, you can take a look at the surface of the probe, just at the tip there, and make sure there's no visible scratches. And just let us know if there is. Okay, so you're going to attach the cord to the handheld unit. You're going to turn it on. You're going to press the calibration button. You're going to choose the first one, the ODO, and then choose the DO percent. And it's going to take you to this screen, and you're just going to give it a couple minutes. So right here is where your barometer reading will be, and you can record this on your field sheet. And if you see that black box on the bottom, there's 2 lines. So we want to make sure those lines are looking stable, just no dramatic peaks. So just give it a couple minutes. Once everything looks stable, then you can hit accept calibration. And then just escape, and it'll take you back to the home screen. Okay. And then for connectivity, you're going to receive a bottle of connectivity calibration solution. There's going to be a value written on this bottle. In this example, it's 987. So that's going to be relevant right away here. You're going to keep the cord attached to the unit. You can take the gray sleeve off, keep the metal guard on. And you're going to fill up the graduated cylinder that's going to come in your chlorophyll A kit with that connectivity solution. I like to fill it halfway and then put the probe in, and then you can top it up because we want to have that connectivity sensor that's shown in the left there. We want that to be completely covered. And you can record that calibration solution value on your field sheet as well. So this number will change. So just record exactly what's on the bottle. Okay, once again, hit the calibration button. This time choose connectivity and then specific conductance. And it's going to take you back to this screen. So this time you're going to go into the calibration value, and you're actually going to change that value to what's on the bottle. so that it's gonna match. So if in this example it was 987, you'll go in, change it to 987. And then you're gonna wait a couple minutes again, wait for those lines to look stable. And then you can accept the calibration, go back to the home screen, put the gray sleeve back on, and your probe is ready to go for the day. If you're doing multiple lakes, if you're doing, let's say 2 lakes in a day, you only have to do this once. But if you were gonna split that up and go out the next day, then you'd want to do that again in the morning. Okay. So once everything's calibrated, you make sure you have your field sheets with you, your manual, you have a bottle set in a cooler with a cold ice pack ready to go. Next step is making sure that your boat is prepped and that you have some safety gear with you. Make sure that your boat has enough gas and oil to go onto the lake for an hour or two, or in the case of canoes or kayaks, just that the paddles are in good shape. Having an emergency paddle on a motorized boat is always beneficial in case something does go wrong or the weather takes a bad turn. Having a life jacket or PFD onto your vessel is required by law, but it's your choice to wear it or not. It just needs to be present on the boat. A very important item that is needed is an anchor or sufficient weight, depending on the size of your vessel, along with an attached rope that is of appropriate length for the lake you are sampling. Rule of thumb we have for the rope is to be twice as long as the max depth of your lake. I know in some cases we're unaware of the depth of the lake because they hasn't been sampled before. But likely having a 20 to 30 meter rope will be good enough. If you know the lakes are quite shallow, maybe only a 10-meter length will be needed. Either way, it's important to have with you when you reach your sampling site. This is to help prevent your boat from drifting while you take the profile measurements and collect all your bottles because you will be there for an extended period. Again, just making sure someone has a working cell phone or radio with them, especially if service isn't great. And just some other safety gear to consider. Buoyant rope for rescue purposes, air horn, whistle for emergencies, small first aid kit, flashlights, all optional, but just something to consider. Okay. So once your boat is launched, you're going to head out to where you want to sample. Again, this is your choice. Once you arrive, you're going to drop anchor, turn off the boat. We don't want gas contaminating your sample, and secure it. And then you're going to grab your GPS coordinates and put them onto your field sheet. And again, don't sample in strong winds. This could hurt your sample integrity and then also be a safety concern. So if it's really windy that day, just reschedule the trip as best as you can. Is there any questions so far?
Doing the tests on the lake, when you say they take coordinates, so do you take samples, like 4 or 5 different samples from the lake, or and in different coordinates?
Yeah, so we just go to one location, so it'll just be one set of GPS coordinates, and then you're going to collect your profile measurements and your bottle sets just at the one location.
Oh, so you just basically just take one sample at a time from the lake, it's not from different locations, just pick a spot out there, take a sample, is that it?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
and the location can be up to you. Again, if it's a traditional fishing site, which some communities have done, some have chosen, they want to know about the deepest point and get the most data on the lake. Yeah, that's something you can discuss amongst yourselves. And when I come out with you, then you'll just guide me. We'll just go out together and do that. Okay, so next you're gonna fill out the front side of the field sheet, including all the sampling information, all the environmental observations. You're gonna use the tape and weight to measure your bottom depth and record that onto the back side of your field sheet. And then again, just fill out those additional comments, vegetation types, weather, wildlife, if the lake's busy, had any difficulty accessing the lake or with your boat. And
Oh, sorry,
again,
Kristen.
oh, yeah.
There was just a question from Amanda in the chat of if you have a schedule for when you're coming to the communities.
Yeah, so that'll be something I will reach out to each community and discuss. I'm hoping to get out in June or early July with the new communities that haven't done the sampling yet. I would really like to make it for the first round of sampling if we can. I know June is filling up like crazy for me, and I'm sure for yourselves as well. So I will be discussing that and we can schedule a date. Otherwise, I can come right up to September for any kind of trip. So I will make it out for one, and then that's when I bring those contaminant bottles. So you'll just have the base sets for everything. I'll bring out the contaminant bottles just because they have a quick hold time, and then I just bring everything back to Edmonton with me. So you don't have to worry about shipping, and just to get those more time sensitive bottles in. So something unique to summer sampling is that we measure the Secchi depth. So this just looks at the water clarity or transparency. So first and foremost, it's very important to measure Secchi depth on the shady side of the boat and to remove your sunglasses. So this minimizes the reflection off the water. Wherever the sun is in the sky, just head to the opposite side of the boat. Sometimes the sun may be directly above you and there really isn't a shady side, so just do your best to choose what side you think will interfere the least when measuring. So next you're going to lower your Secchi disc until just under the water surface. Just take a minute to record the color of the Secchi disc on your field sheet. So you'll just take a look at the white stripes on the disc and mark what color the water appears against it. Then you want to slowly lower the disc until the white stripes just disappear from your view. Make sure to become familiar with the marking guide so you can keep track of the length being lowered. It will be written on the Secchi board itself, and then this marking guide is also provided in the manual. So once the disc just disappears, hold it there, record that depth on your field sheet under disappears. The chain is already, yeah, as I said, the chain is already marked and there's the marking guide here. The next step to slowly raise the disc until you just observe the white stripes again. It's going to be pretty faint, so at this depth you'll record it as reappears on your field sheet. And now you can pull the Secchi all the way back up, and then you're just going to take the average of those two depths, and that is your Secchi depth. So just for example, if your Secchi disappeared at 2.7 meters and became visible again at 2.1 meters, then your average would be 2.4 meters, and that's your Secchi depth. I've also included a link on our website to the Pigeon Lake Watershed Association's training video for Secchi depth. So this is a good visual reference if anyone is interested. Okay, next, you're going to record all your profile measurements. So starting at the 0.1 meters, you'll record your temperature, dissolved oxygen, and connectivity values on your handheld. So just once you begin, you'll lower the probe to the first marking. Just give it a minute or two just to let the probe acclimate in the water. And then you'll lower it to your next marking of 0.5 meters. Record again temperature, dissolved oxygen, and connectivity. And then you're going to do this every meter increment until you reach a meter above your bottom depth. Yeah, again, if you're doing 5 meter bottom depth, stop at 4. Okay, and then finally, you're going to collect all your water samples with the bottles that we will send you. It's pretty much the same process for all these. I won't spend too much time on it, but just a few key points is to label your bottles before you start dipping them into the lake. Yeah, Sharpies just don't like wet bottles, unfortunately. And also with the time, you can just record the same time as you did at the beginning of your field sheet. So if you started at 10 a.m. on your field sheet, you can just put 10 a.m. on all your bottles. Other things on there is just the lake name, location name, and the date. So these can all get recorded before you start filling them. And then you're going to triple rinse all your bottles in the lake before filling them up. So just a quick dip, swirl, dump, do this twice more. 2 bottles to pay attention to are the microsystem bottle. Just filled like 3/4 full, not all the way. We just want to leave a little headspace because these will be frozen. This specific bottle will be frozen after, and it sometimes can explode if it's too full. And the other one is the G2 preserved bottle. So this one will require you to add the preservative. This will be attached. It's just at the bottom left, the picture, there's a little vial with a yellow cap. That's just sulfuric acid. We do provide the nitrile gloves and safety goggles. At least, the very least, please put on the gloves as, yes, this is acid, but it is a small amount. You'll just quickly add it, cap it, and then just invert it a few times to mix. And then once these bottles are filled, they can all go into your cooler with the cold ice pack and just wait with you on the boat till you get back to shore. And I'll just go over the bottle storage pretty soon here. Okay, so after sampling, is there any questions right now about what to do on the lake? So with the routine, the G1 TSS, the G2 preserved, the G2F, and the isotope bottles, they all have a 3-day hold time from the collection time. Yeah.
Okay, one question. You
Sure.
also mentioned earlier about whether, like for the fishing part, we're also gonna be checking on fish, right? So if we're fishing there, while we're doing the sampling and stuff like that, whatever that you suggested that earlier, what do we do with the fish? Like, how do we preserve it or how do we test it or whatever? Why would,
Yeah, okay, so yeah, fair question. So I don't do the fish health assessments, I don't do the fish sampling. This was more it's more of a, if you go out, like you just want a recreational fish, because you're like, well, I'm going out to the lake to sample, I just want to see if I can catch some fish, just for personal consumption. It's just to complement, again, like the lake data that day, or especially if you're not certain if the lake holds fish. It could just be interesting to note for your own records that we caught fish that day. So there is possibilities that this could be a fish-bearing lake. So yeah, I do apologize. I know that's confusing, but this is not the same as the fish sampling that you would do with Keegan. This is just more for your own records as a point of interest. Because it's just some community members like to take a fishing rod out with them while they're out for the day. Does that make sense? It's not something you have to record at all. It's just kind of a side interest. Some communities have used it, some haven't. So don't feel that you need to fill it out.
under the impression that this was also part of fish testing too, this water sampling program? That's,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we definitely complement each other. Our role that we just do the water quality side of things, and then Keegan does the fish side of things. And then our goal is to start connecting that data to complement, especially with the lakes that do both the water quality and the fish testing. Because of course, they do go hand in hand. Poor water quality in lakes results in low fish populations or unhealthy fish populations. So yeah, this is just the water quality. And then Keegan will follow up and he will do his fish assessments, how to do that with you as well.
Thank you.
Okay. So yeah, for the bottle storage, we have a variety of bottles that have a 3-day hold time. So these bottles, when you get back, these can be stored in the fridge to keep cold. Do not freeze these ones. Your microcystin bottle, that you're gonna have just 3/4. If you did fill it full, that's okay. You can just dump a little bit of it outside and then this can go in the freezer to be stored until you're ready to ship back to us. And then we have our chlorophyll A. So this can stay in the fridge until you're ready to filter. Filtering must be done within 24 hours of collection time. And then once the filtering is complete, and I'm going to go through those steps shortly, all 3 of the filter papers will get stored in a Ziploc bag in the freezer until you're ready to ship back. So as most of the bottles do have that shorter hold time of 3 days, it's important to have all the bottles shipped out together on the same day after sampling or the next day at the latest, because it still might take a day or 2 for the bottles to arrive at our office. So the sooner the bottles are sent out and received, we'll get them to the labs, and we just want to ensure that they're within those hold times. Okay, so you're going to have one of your bottles, it'll be that brown bottle that'll have your chlorophyll A. So we're gonna send a kit, and this is some of the stuff that's gonna be in it. You'll have the hand pump, your filter apparatus, a wash bottle, the graduated cylinder, and then your filter paper. Okay, and then to put the filter paper on, you can just unscrew the upper portion of the filter apparatus, put the filter paper on that level surface, screw the top back on, and then you're ready to begin filtering. Okay, so these are all excerpts taken from the field manual. This won't be the last time you see this. So filtering chlorophyll in the winter versus the summer can be a little different because you likely have to filter less water in the summer to get color on it, as usually there's more algae production. So the goal is to pour off your chlorophyll sample, and you just want to get a little bit of color on your filter paper, not have it saturated. And I will provide some pictures, some examples of pictures in your field manual as well of what you might look for. It might be a little green, it might be a little brown, it could be a little yellow. It just depends. But just please note that the brown chlorophyll bottle is 1 liter volume, and we need to filter 3 papers from this volume per lake. So we ask that you filter a maximum of 300 milliliters per filter paper, so that we'll have enough water to create a successful triplicate sample. So for some higher nutrient lakes, you may only filter 20 to 50 milliliters, and then you'll already see some color, whereas some lower nutrient lakes, you may have to filter the full 300 milliliters per paper. Sometimes you may filter more at the beginning of the season and have to filter more as the season goes on and as algae production increases. So all these scenarios are normal and okay. It's just about determining the right filter amount for your lake. So to begin, there will be a pure water bottle provided. You can pour some into your squirt bottle, and this will be used for rinsing. So you can wet the filter paper with the pure water, and then use the hand pump to pump it down. You're going to take your chlorophyll bottle and invert it just a few times to mix the water. And then just recommended to start, you can measure out 50 milliliters in the graduated cylinder, pour that in, filter it down with the pump. And then you're gonna look for a, again, slight color, whether that be a green, a brown, yellow. If you don't notice a color change on the filter paper, go ahead and measure another 50 milliliters. You can always unscrew that top if it's difficult to see a color change. Sometimes I like to do that. And then you can compare the middle of the filter paper to the stark white edges. Also, it is best to filter more in a dark place. So we do recommend going back to your office or your house, or at least just finding somewhere with shade if you want to do it outside, just not directly in the sun, as this will break down the sample quicker. So if you don't see a color change, just continue adding 50 milliliters at a time until you either see a color change or until you reach a maximum of 300 milliliters. It's okay if you never see a color change and you're at 300, you can stop. And then there is a spot on your field sheet to record your filter volumes for each one and to record the color of your first filter paper. Okay, so once you've reached your volume, you're going to use your wash bottle with the pure water to triple rinse your graduated cylinder, and then also the inside of your filter apparatus, and you're going to pump the water down, and then you're going to add your preservative. So it's just 3 drops of the magnesium carbonate that'll be provided. You can pump that down, and then your sample's ready to go into Petri dish. So there's the preservative. Okay, so yeah, using the tweezers, you're going to fold the filter paper in half twice. Please avoid touching the middle of the paper that has the sample on it. You're going to place the filter paper into a Petri dish using the tweezers, and then there will be filter labels provided. So please fill those out with the lake name, location, date, and the total volume of lake water filtered. So on this first one, especially as you're adding different volumes, maybe you've added, 50, now you've done 20, now you've done another 20, and you've noticed color. So it's like, okay, I've done a total of 90 milliliters. That's what you record on your field sheet and your label. And then that's important for us to know and the labs to know. Okay, and then you're going to take aluminum foil that's provided and just wrap the Petri dish in it, and this just reduces that light exposure. Okay, and then you're going to do this twice more. So the nice thing is once you get your first one, now you know what your filter volume is going to be, whether that was 150, whether that was 20, whether that was 300, you're just going to copy that amount now. So now you can pour that amount directly into your graduated cylinder and repeat all these steps, and you should have a total of 3 filter papers to go into the Ziploc bag, and then these can be frozen until you're ready to ship. Is there any questions on the chlorophyll filtering? Okay. So for shipping, so this is just a copy of the shipping slip that I will send out with each kit this summer. Our Purelator account number will be included on there, and this can be used to ship the samples or gear back. You don't have to send this slip back with the samples. You can just keep this for the season and refer to it when you're filling out the courier information. Please always choose express or overnight shipping so that the samples can get to our office as fast as possible. And please check with your courier for the overnight cutoff times. This can be found on the Purelator website. You can just type in your location name, and then it'll give you a list of different Purelator locations, and it'll tell you the cutoff. Another important thing to note is just to keep your sampling schedule in mind. So if you're going to go out first thing in the morning, how much time do you need to complete the sampling, filter the chlorophyll, and then prep the samples for shipment, so you might be able to send out samples the same day. If you can't get out till the afternoon, that's totally fine. Everything can be sent the next day. And just note in summer, just because you have to prep your boat, you have to get the boat on the lake, it just might take a little longer than in winter when you can just walk out onto the ice. And just to make sure that you include all your bottles, including make sure you go into the freezer and grab the 3 filter papers and your microcystin bottle, and then always include a cold ice pack or 2 when shipping back to us. And another important thing to please just send a copy of the field sheet. You can keep the original. I just need a copy, and you can either email that to me or text it to me. That way I can input the information right away. And if you can too, it's really beneficial to take a picture of the Purelator tracking number, and you can just email or text that to me as well, and then I can keep an eye on the shipment in case there's any delays. So with sampling, it's best to try to sample from Sunday to Wednesday, just to ensure that the samples are not being shipped on the weekends and they won't exceed the hold times. Our office is not open on Saturday and Sundays. Thursday sampling can occur in the morning if you plan to ship out the same day, and if your cutoff time is okay. I know with Lac La Biche, I think the cutoff time for overnight is noon, so it's pretty quick, but I think Fort Mac might be 5 o'clock, so you have a little more flexibility, so it's just always good to check in with that. We recommend at least 2 weeks between each sampling trip, just to give that diversity in values. Again, just pay attention to the weather. No one wants to get caught on the lake when a storm comes, of course. And I've just listed our office closures here as well. So these will just be the long weekends. We won't be in the office. So feel free to text or email me anytime or call if you plan to sample, and we can change some dates around if it might not work out with these holidays, or if other events come up. And just for your boat selection, it just has to fit the probe kit and your bottle set, and then just any additional gear you want to bring. I've gone out in kayaks with community members, so that is an option and it can be done. I've gone out on a what do they call those, paddle boats? So yeah, whatever you have access to, you just need to fit the kit and the bottle set. And if you have to travel maybe by ATV to get to your lake as well, that's something to consider. Okay, so next step. So if I haven't spoken to you already, I think I've spoken to majority, but just contact me to let me know which lake you want to sample this summer. If there's any additional gear that you might need for sampling, any boat safety gear, an anchor, anything like that, let me know. And then I will be following up to make a shipping plan for gear and equipment. Some community members, they travel to Edmonton often for other work. We'd be happy to arrange a pickup as well. Sure you're on the office at any point in time. We're just south of in Edmonton. And then I will also follow up with each community, schedule a field visit this summer. Again, I will try to get the newer communities more for June, beginning of July, but that will go till September. Okay, so again, a big thank you to all the hard work communities have put in to collect data over the last couple of years. Of course, this program is funded by the Oil Sands Monitoring Program, so we're thankful all the work plans have been approved to continue this work up north. My information is just to the side there, so please feel free to contact me if you have any questions, concerns, or wish to discuss the monitoring plan. Yeah, and I will be posting this onto our website as well. And thank you for joining today. I hope you enjoyed the session. Are there any questions?